think that's the recording product. It shuts everybody up on it. All right, welcome everybody. So the first thing we need to do, David, could you put up the remote participation boilerplate, please? One. Would you like to make the motion?
I move that Alita Child's request to attend today's meeting of the JMRL Board remotely due to a personal matter, specifically childcare needs to be approved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item is the minutes of our December meeting. I had to stop there for a minute. Comments or additions, questions? If there are no corrections, additions, subtractions, if I could have a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes as written.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. New announcement first.
I have an announcement.
Oh, really?
I'd like the board to welcome remotely in our remote audience today is Christopher McCotter, who is the new Cuckoo District representative to the Louisa County Board of Supervisors, replacing Willie Gentry there, who you all know as Louisa's library liaison. And Mr. McCotter will be taking over as the Louisa Board of Supervisors liaison to the library board. Joining remotely today, but maybe we'll see him next month in Louisa.
Anything else? Any public comments? Somebody in the room? Do you have anybody online?
If you'd like to make public comment online, please use the Zoom raise hand function now. Doesn't look like we have any public comment today.
All right. We're very pleased to host the folks from the Same Page program, which we're kicking off very soon. And along with David, we have Aaron Donovan, Assistant Director of the Virginia Center for the Book.
Okay, well, Aaron and I are just going to chat a little bit about the Same Page program. Special thanks to Catherine Fay, who is here, who is the chair of the formerly known as the Goodwill Committee, now the Same Page Community Read Committee. And I'm going to give you some information that Catherine has shared with me about the Same Page program, and then Aaron is going to talk about this year's Festival of the Book. Come on up, Aaron. I'm pleased to welcome Aaron, the Assistant Director of the Virginia Center for the Book, where she supports both the Virginia Festival of the Book and book arts. Prior to joining the Center for the Book, Aaron worked with a variety of New Orleans nonprofits, including Friends of the New Orleans Public Library and Tulane University Center for Public Service. Aaron holds an MFA in creative writing from the University of Arkansas and an MA in Italian from Middlebury College. So I'm here to do this first part where we talk about the Same Page Community Read program. I brought a book for each trustee, so make sure you pick one up before you go. This year is the 30th annual Virginia Festival of the Book, which is the largest community-based book event in the Mid-Atlantic region. And it's attended by more than 20,000 participants every year. This year, it's going to take place March 20th through 24th. Some preliminary events will begin earlier in March. So JMRL's participation in the Same Page actually began under the Big Read National Endowment for the Arts grant. It was an association with the Virginia Festival of the Book and originally funded by an NEA grant in 2007 in partnership with Virginia Humanities. So JMRL has been doing this community read for quite a few years now. JMRL participated with the Big Read until 2018 when the library began a direct partnership with the Festival of the Book, with funding from the Friends of the Library and support from the Art and Jane Hess Fund of the Library Endowment. At that point, the program was rebranded as the Same Page Community Read. JMRL works with the Friends of the Library and the festival annually to bring a celebrated author to town and distribute free copies of one of their books throughout the service area. This program has reached out into homes and community centers across our region. The 2024 Same Page Community Read features, the title is Florence Adler Swims Forever. Florence Adler is not the author. The author is Richmond author Rachel Beanland, who uses her own family history to craft a story about a tragedy during the 30s that swept 3 generations of the Adler family into a riptide of heartbreak and secrets. So you get a little early preview of this. The in-person author discussion with Rachel Beanland will be on Wednesday, March 20th at 5:30 at the Jefferson Center here in Charlottesville. Options for virtual streaming will be available, we think?
Yeah.
Yes, probably.
Yeah.
JMRL will host kickoff events across the regional library branches that will have free books, community partnerships, take and make activities. And there are currently 12 JMRL book clubs planning and participating as well. So if you're looking for a group to discuss the book with, you can join any of JMRL's book clubs. Florence Adler Swims Forever is available to check out at all JMRL branches. It's available online as an ebook, and we also have a few book club kits where you can check out the whole kit, and it has 10 copies? 10 copies along with some discussion questions. So JMRL is deeply appreciative to our partnership with the Festival of the Book. Special thanks also to the Friends of the Library for supporting the Same Page Community Read for the last 17 years, providing free copies of the book to distribute to the public for the print and digital advertising and all other aspects of the program. We have the Friends of the Library to thank. This year, JMRL anticipates putting at least 500 books into the hands of our patrons. So I hope you all will enjoy Florence Adler Swims Forever, and we'll see you at some of our programs. I was going to give you a quick rundown just to remind you all of all the titles that we have done since 2007. So you don't have to take notes for this, but the Big Read started as a very much a classic reads, kind of like high school English type books. So the first 5 or 6 were in 2007, The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest Gaines, The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett, Bless Me Ultima by Rodolfo Anaya, Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan, True Grit, Charles Portis, The Namesake by Yunfa Lahiri, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers, and the last big read title was Silver Sparrow with Tiare Jones. That was the first time that JMRL was able to work with the festival to bring the author here. The next year, as the first Same Page title, is What We Talk About When We Talk About Anne Frank with Nathan Englander. The following year was The Tea-Girls of Hummingbird Lane with Lisa C. Brown Girl Dreaming was a 2-year Same Page program because COVID canceled the festival in 2020. We did a virtual program with author Jacqueline Woodson in 2021. And then 2022, We Are Not Free with Tracy Chi. And 2023, last year, was Book of Delights with Ross Day. So it's quite a varied list for 17 years. So anyway, thank you all, and please welcome Erin Donovan to talk a little bit about this year's festival.
Thank you. Well, first, I'm so excited to be here with y'all. In addition to having worked with the Friends of the New Orleans Public Library, my mother was a storyteller in the public library of my hometown and retired just a couple of years ago. So love libraries, all in for libraries. So thanks y'all for everything that you do. So David invited me to give maybe a little overview of our staff, the changes that have happened with the festival, a little sneak peek maybe into the future of the festival, and maybe a couple insights into what's coming in this year's festival in March. The full schedule, which will be rolled out this coming Friday, hopefully, so you'll get a little bit more detail then. So I'm one member of a team of 3 for the Center for the Book. Our center director, Kalela Williams, joined us October 2022, and we just welcomed our 3rd team member, Emmy Thacker, who joined us in September 2023. So we are finally a full team, firing on all thrusters almost, and really looking to kind of bring the festival kind of back full throttle the way it was before the pandemic. We did have to cancel the 2022 festival because of the pandemic. We were fully virtual in 2021. We did a hybrid festival in 2022, and then we were back almost entirely in person in 2023. So now we've really kind of got our sea legs, hopefully, and we have a larger festival than last year. With Kalela Williams, we made a few changes to kind of the structure of the festival. So in 2023, last March, we started doing preview events around Central Virginia. So We held events in Crozet, in Stanton, in Richmond, and this March, we are also going to be holding events in Roanoke, in Grundy, in Nelson County, and hopefully in the future, we will be able to expand to really fully live up to our name as the Virginia Festival of the Book. We're also kind of incorporating signature type events to bring a little something special, something a little more exciting and elaborate. So last year we introduced our Horror at Holiday Trails panel, for example, where we bussed people out to holiday trails and had a campfire, we had food trucks, and we had 4 renowned horror writers reading from their works to a thrilled and frightened crowd. So this year, you know, we've got an incredible lineup at the Paramount, which was announced a couple of weeks ago. That should be up on the Paramount's website. And there are kind of all-day passes for all of those events. We have Roxana Gay coming. We have Poet Laureate A.L. Limon, and State Senator Danica Roem, among others, Percival Everett, who has a new book forthcoming and also has inspired the movie American Fiction. We also are introducing this year what we're calling Festival Friday, which will be kind of a lovely way to animate the downtown mall and have lots of local authors and local bookstores and really kind of maybe bring back some of that previous feel of like the whole town being involved. So that's what we're going for with that. Maybe the general shape of the festival is we start out small on Wednesday with just a handful of events. We've got kind of leading into Same Page in the evening and following up with a sponsored event at Common House, looking back at music from the 90s. Thursday, we really get up and rolling with a lot of programming at JMRL, focused on animals and ecosystems. Friday, we bring in some of our Crime Wave programming and follow into Festival Friday. And then Saturday is our main day where we've got the Paramount running all day, as well as the Omni and various other venues around town. And Sunday is kind of our wind down day. So we'll have just a handful of events at Monticello, at Highland, and at Ivy Creek, and capping it all off at the end of the day with the UVA MFA reading at Visible Records and a little festival finale around the corner at Decipher Brewing to kind of network and talk about how everything went. And I would be remiss to mention on Saturday that we have our Wordy 30 reception where we will be celebrating the 30 years of our festival with local and national authors. So I kind of rushed through everything, but I wanted to leave a little bit of room in case folks had any questions.
Center for the Book is putting on a ton of programming, which is great for us to be able to participate with and we partner with. My question is, I'm just curious, as I'm thinking about that range of stuff, how that mix of programs or the mix of books are chosen or defined. With JMRL, we have a material selection policy, which supports our mission and values, which include amplifying a wide range of voices and so forth. I'm curious if there is a similar criteria that's published or documented in terms of how you go about picking which things that are going to be participating in your programs.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I should also say, first of all, so it's Festival of the Book is a program of Virginia Center for the Book, which is a program of Virginia Humanities, the state humanities organization, which is itself a department of UVA, all of whom kind of influence the way that we select authors and books. It has long been a kind of tenet of the festival to not only kind of find authors and topics that are of interest to all Virginians, but also bring in authors and topics to kind of share those voices in Virginia as well. So we select books through a variety of ways. Some of them come from partnerships. So both UVA partnerships and departments. This year we're focusing, well, we're not focusing, but we're featuring programs that we have developed in partnership with UVA East Asian Studies, UVA Jewish Studies. We are also working, we've also worked with a lot of community organizations like, don't let my mind go blank right now. The Women's Center and it has gone blank, but we've got a full list. And then we also have a submissions portal that's open for 3 months, starting in June and ending in September. And we do our best to provide just a full range of voices. That is the goal of the program, which is not to say that, you know, we don't sometimes fall short. But we do our best and we are open to feedback.
Thanks.
Didn't it used to be that you had, an author had to have a book published within a year? Is that still a criteria?
Yeah. So
The book has to be out this year, basically.
so our festival is at the end of March. So part of the submissions criteria are that the book has been published between March of last year's festival and this coming March. We have to make sure that the book is available and in print to be able to be sold at the festival, so that the authors and the publishers and our local booksellers can get their revenue.
We keep hearing about these animals that are coming to the central library. What should we know in advance about
There might be
animals?
some snakes, there might be some deer.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, one of the authors.
Will be Erica Hauser, who did a presentation on deer at New Dominion, but she just had, like, a little box that had deer hair in it. So I don't think we'll have like physical
Deer actually.
creatures.
Oh, dear.
But the full program, cross your fingers, Set of Strength will be out on Friday, if not shortly thereafter. And I'm really excited about it. I think we all are.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to it. Thanks for coming today, Erin.
We move on to perennial favorite, the Central Renovation Working Group report.
Oh, that's me. So since we last met in December, we've really kind of ramped up a little bit, just communicating our needs with specific entities. So Jane spoke to the Albemarle Board of Supervisors and made a presentation about our CIP request, why it's important and what we're asking for. I did a similar thing in front of the Charlottesville City Council in their first meeting in January. And then David spoke to the City of Charlottesville Planning Commission, which reviews the CIP request and its recommendations. We also spoke to the City of Charlottesville Financial Group about our budget, our actual budget, but the CIP request also came up, and they were pretty clear about what's happening there, which is basically, I would say the city is supportive of our CIP request. I think they've gotten word from Brian Pinkston and others, and they would like to see this happen within the 5-year CIP plan. So we have to coordinate with the county. That's a little not as clear that they're on. I think they're on board, but whether they make the request is not quite clear right now. We're hoping. We're very close. We are so close to getting this within the 5-year plan. So I think that's where we are right now. I'm going to reach out. I have reached out to Jim Andrews, who's the president of the Board of Supervisors, to see if we can meet one more time, just to encourage an actual commitment. That seems to be the issue. And then Kathy may also speak to the Charlottesville city council and another member of our working committee is scheduled to speak to the Board of Supervisors. So we've been very, sensitive not to overwhelm either entity and to make them feel, kind of cornered into this. It's just more like, we will be back next year. If this doesn't go through, we aren't going away. The renovations aren't going to happen, just by accident. It will take an action by both entities, whether they do it this year, they're going to hear from us next year and the year after that, and the costs keep going up. So I think, we're just doing the best we can at this point. So, let you know. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I've got news for you. On Friday last week, I had two separate meetings at the Central Library, one with budget staff of Albemarle County and their chief project manager from the facilities department, Blake Altenap, who was the main project manager on the design of the North Side Library. So I gave them a tour top to bottom, and their new deputy county administrator came as well, and they saw a lot of the needs in the building, recognized the age of the building, and were able to kind of compare and contrast it to other Albemarle library facilities. So that was good. And at City of Charlottesville's suggestion, I also met with Blake's equivalent at the city, Mike Goddard and Scott Hendricks, who's a project manager there, because they are the ones who will actually most likely be the project managers for a renovation project. So we sat and talked about timing and what the needs would be, and both parties talked a bit about kind of some barriers in construction right now, where there's some real long lead time for certain materials and things like that. But both of those sets of staff from the city and the county saw a need and identified a need and agreed that this needs to happen. So the other thing was that Ann's suggestion, Paul Hartwell, the president of the Friends of the Library, wrote a letter to City Council and to the Board of Supervisors. Just Ann and I have been walking around for a year telling everybody that the Friends are prepared to fundraise and give money to this project. So it was just something official from them saying, yes, we will do that, which I think was appreciated. And he heard back from a few counselors. So just a little bit extra information there.
Is there any questions about where we are?
It's great progress. It's really heartening to actually see some concrete stuff there.
I think what I'm hearing most from both bodies is the potential to get an architecture and engineering cost, which would be over $1 million to do the actual shovel-ready plans for the facility into their next 5-year plan. And both of them have committed that if that were to happen, they wouldn't let those plans languish. You do all that, spend all the money, you do all that work, and if it doesn't then turn into a project, it's out of date shortly. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to coordinate on getting that into fiscal year 26, 27, 28, and then the project to follow. We should know in March.
That would be the foot in the door. That's sort of our plan B. But that would be huge, actually.
Thank you. 5-year plan committee reports.
Okay. So we had a couple small group meetings, more than nothing, and have made a lot of progress. I think we're meeting one more time. We met with the whole group one more time just to go over some of the editing we've done and the whole idea of the flyer that we're creating. The team contacted a graphic designer this we're going to be working with. I think we're going to meet time on Wednesday. Hopefully that'll be it. A little more tweaking. What we're hoping is to show the board a draft. Over from.
No, I think that's what we've been talking about internally on the committee. And the parallel project that needs to happen at the same time is a staff document. So the strategic plan itself is going to focus on vision and goals with some strategies. And then we're working on a parallel staff document with measurable objectives that also identify who's responsible for it.
And we're following the lead. David and research and lots of documents that are very similar on other library systems, and it's a much more digestible document about where we're going as opposed to giving everybody 17 pages to read. So they have sort of high-level document, and then there's more content available.
We'll move on to new business. I have the second disbursement discussion for the funds from the Hartman estate. David, you want to clarify?
Sure. So board members will recall that last May, there was a disbursement from this estate of Mr. Hartman of $30,000 that the board made a motion to give to the Library Endowment Fund, which is where it is now. The second distribution just came in, and this one is much larger. It was a $100,000. He basically split his estate between some folks, and then he took 10% of it and gave it to 5 different organizations, one of which was the library, so much appreciated. There will be one final distribution after this, once all the dust is settled. This was after the sale of his last properties, so I expect the final one will be more in line with the first one. It makes sense to me that this funding should be put into the endowment to grow for future uses, particularly for brick and mortar construction projects at that amount of funding. So board can discuss as is, and if they're interested in that option, there would be a motion to take that distribution and give it to the funding library endowment.
I kind of feel, I don't know what conversations with this bequester happened, beforehand. I assume there were no conditions.
Correct.
If I were the heir or part of that family or the person looking from above or whatever it is, I like to feel like it's doing something specific. And I feel like, and if it were the case that the friends were just jump starting this fund, with this dollars, that would make sense. But I feel like putting it into that is really subsumed by the magnitude of what's already there. Just conceptually, I'm putting onto the table. I like the idea of being able to say, hey, we got this dollars and we were able to use it for this good purpose, whatever that is. Whereas here it's just commingled as, in the future, generally, we'd like to be able to use it for something like a central library. Now, I know last time we were up against some real, so that's a general, a wish that I might have. I realize there's logistical issues. We've got a budget and we can't carry stuff over. And those are the types of things we ran up against last time around because we were right up against a fiscal year deadline. I think that's possibly not the case. I think we might have a couple months.
We have until the end of June.
Till the end of June. So at the least, I might suggest we explore, since we have 3, 4, 6 months, what it might look like to do something tangible in the interim. And then if we do get closer to that and we haven't identified something that's tangible and concrete, then there's always the backup of putting it with the Friends endowment. And I also point out, I made this comment last time as well, once it goes to the Friends, we work very closely with Friends, but JMRL does not have any longer have control of those.
Well, that's not exactly true. The endowment is controlled by an advisory committee of 5 members that's made up of the president, vice president of this board, and then the president, vice president of the Friends, and myself.
So we have input and influence for
Yeah,
sure, but I'm just pointing out for everyone, it is my understanding, it's a separate organization that, and they've always, again, worked very closely with us in our interests for sure. But we know that if we did come up with a tangible project, we would have to go get permission and just another layer of arm's length where we'd have to get control back of those funds to use it for something. So those are some thoughts I have. Maybe they're practical, maybe they're not. But yeah.
I have 2 questions. When they decided to leave it to us, were there any stipulations? And the family or the gentleman who left it to us, I can't remember. Do you know he was just a friend of the library and loved the library and all those wonderful things. So because he didn't make stipulations, I kind of think he just wanted us to keep moving on. So I feel what you're saying and I agree, but I don't think we should feel so guilty. Well, that's not the word to use, but, you know, it seems to me, because I've been in organizations where people leave things behind and they say, I definitely wanted to go to a girl, you know, who's going to study nursing. But if it's not a thing, I think just wanted us to keep rolling on.
Other comments? Now, David, in the past, when we've gotten these unrestricted grants and gifts, have we at any point, I mean, not to say that we can't do it going forward, I'm just curious as to history, have we ever earmarked same for something?
If they're unrestricted,
Yeah.
no, they generally have gone towards the endowment fund. Sometimes we have given them to a specific endowment fund. There is a fund for each branch. So the board could maybe say they would like this large sum to go towards the central library fund, which is the place that this project that we're talking about would be drawing on fundraising, and that would be a kickstart to that specific project, although that is still, we don't know for sure.
Exists for sure, yeah.
Generally, though, we have a bit more contact with the donors. You know, we either talk to them when they're writing, when they're starting to work on their family planning, or it's not in a will, it's from somebody making a gift. In this case, all the communication has come from a law firm, after postmortem. So if I had a sense of what it was that that Mr. Hartman was interested in, then I think we could make some stipulations even on giving a gift to the endowment. But I don't know what that is.
Do we know where he is from?
The law office is in Harrisonburg.
The law office is in Harrisburg.
So his estate lawyers are in Harrisonburg.
Did he live in Charlottesville, the actual decedent?
I did not find any information about his passing in the Charlottesville newspaper. That's not to say that it's not there, and I can put
I was just
staff on it here.
If he was from Louisa or something, it would make sense to focus it.
Focus on that area. And that's the type of thing we've done
So we don't.
where we've known like this person was, you know, I think about Ms. Giuseppe, who was like a longtime patron of the Greene County Library, and she passed in the state lesson fund to the Greene Fund because we knew, yeah, like the Swigert family gift, we knew that she used the Gordon Avenue and Central branches. Focused attention there.
But there wasn't anything that said it needs to go.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a decision that we have. Where
Yeah, the board has to make a decision on what to
I
do.
mean, I don't feel like, you know, I feel like it was a general gift, like you're saying, to keep things going. But it just, like, I mean, might be nice to think of something to do for him if, for instance, this money was going to go to the central renovation, putting up something, thanking him for the gift. If we have donors, might be a nice do, but we're buying some books. Acknowledge the gift, but if there's nothing specific, it seems like we shouldn't really tie ourselves down. I don't think we're sitting here going like, well, we have $100,000 project that this would be perfect.
I mean, that's one of the things with unanticipated gifts is that, like, you mentioned books. So the book budget that JMRL spends comes entirely from state aid, and it is, you know, quarterly set. Like, here's how much we can handle in terms of ordering, processing, receiving materials, and that's been the workflow for half a year. So an influx of money like that is not without its own
I didn't mean
challenges.
100,000. I just meant like a couple books. Just like when someone retires
Well,
from the
what I'm
book
saying is that
review.
if the board were to decide that we wanted to earmark this for a central library project and it was gonna be 4 books, then there's more time to.
Yeah.
Plan that. Go ahead, Mike.
So, well, it's interesting that you said that because one of the analogies that I was gonna bring up is I think, I recall in the past, I think at least twice and possibly 3 times, we've come close to a fiscal deadline and we've had sort of an overage in the general fund, if I'm using the correct term, and it was if I recall, it was $50,000 each of those times, and we said, hey, what we're gonna do with that is allocate that to the materials budget. And we put it to good use in the it was put to good use, you know, it's 50, but it's not so far off of the kind of range, the ballpark.
It could, yeah, if you decided today, let's take this $100,000 and buy books and materials, it would absolutely happen.
Yeah, so I'll make one other thought, and then I'll just kind of leave it there with what you want to do. But again, we do have a little time. You could solicit from the staff, hey, what's your pet project that would be in support our mission and values that you wanted to kickstart, improve, and so, you know, solicit some brainstorming from staff and see what ideas are out there. I bet there's those folks have better ideas than the 9 people in this room of things that could be done. Sort of to improve our, and you're right, Kathy, that this would it would have to be a one-time context because it's not necessarily recurring. But it's a thought.
When you throw it out there to say staff, I think that when I was working, I may have a whole lot of lists this long.
Yes.
You may have a list of 2 things and you may have a list of 1 thing. So how do we
Yeah, someone would have to
fairly
sort through
treat
it.
somebody?
Yeah.
So where it's going, where he's putting it is sort of like, you can make today I need this, and it's sort of governed. But I mean, he could give it to me. I would love to have a new deck. I'm sure some other people would love to have some things, but, and it's just off the record, but, I think it's really important that we kind of put it where everybody can kind of make a chunk, not choose, because we may.
The only kind of to piggyback on that point is that we do use the endowment for special projects of that sort. So if staff, we make a request and we go in July of every year, that advisory committee meets and they review requests and then they make a decision on whether or not to fund those.
And how much is in the endowment now?
The endowment is over $3 million at this point.
So everybody has an opportunity to speak up.
They have an opportunity to present projects to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm, yeah.
I think Michael's just saying he doesn't want you to hoard it.
Sure, yeah.
And the staff is aware that it's there.
That the advisory, that the endowment.
Know that there is
is there?
money, funding, if
Yeah,
they know.
that's a good question. I assume so, but I don't, it's not, we don't use the same kind of application process that we use for managers to make operational requests or friends of the library requests or equipment requests. But that's something that probably with the endowment has grown tremendously in the last few years. It was kickstarted by $1 million gift from the Swigert family, and then some investments that the CACF made in 2021 and 22 really it grew quite a bit. So I think it is time to have a process, but that's kind of it's not deciding what to do with this check right now, but I like the idea.
I kind of would like to suggest that we contact the lawyers and find out whether or not this gentleman had any particular desires for an aspect of a legacy. Because if we look at other folks perhaps wanting to make a donation, sometimes it's nice to have it anonymous. Sometimes it's nice to have your name, but sometimes there is a particular aspect which I'm thinking of supporting when I say the library. And if it could be delved into to find out whether or not maybe he was a rare book collector or a this, that, or the other that would fit in with some of the things that are going on in the library that the name could attach to. And when we're trying to get more of these kinds of endowments, we can say this is another way. So I would be in favor of holding on and asking staff asking you to maybe find out a little bit more, try to see if there's anything behind this idea that Michael has of something more than general wish. might be associated with what were the other places where his money went.
I think we have that list.
Yeah.
It was in the disbursement letter at some point. So that I do have. It was like the SPCA. I can't remember off the top of
But
my
he didn't say that I was a rare book collector. He just said I wanted to go to JMRL, which covers everything. Because usually in a will, you say, I'd
Yeah.
like her to have my special pearls and I'd like him to have my, China press. But usually they tell us. Yeah.
Generally, there's a conversation that happens with potential donors that we try to make sure that the library is honoring their wishes. So things go towards specific. Like the last very large, we raised quite a bit of money in the Grow Nelson Library Group did during the Nelson Library renovation. And we got from one individual a gift similar in size to this one, and it went to pay for the outreach vehicle that is driving around Nelson County bringing library services. So it was part of a give and take conversation with the person about how to best use that gift. But that was more focused. It was very specifically for the Nelson Library expansion and for services to Nelson County.
And that's what that family or that person said.
Go ahead, Alita. I can see your hand up, but you're muted.
I'm muted, okay. I was just wondering, in what area, what was this person? Was he Nelson? Was he Albemarle? What? All right. Do we know anything like that?
I don't know.
So I think procedurally, we can do two things here. We can basically keep this on the agenda, ask David to see if we can find any more details of the disbursement, person's interests, that kind of thing, bring that back to next month's meeting. Or we can say, as we've done in the past, motion to put this in the endowment and as we've done with disbursements in the past. And I have no feeling either one way or the other, so I leave it up to the will of the group. As you said, we have time.
Well, I've got a check in my
Got a
office.
check, right? You don't want to.
Sure.
We'll get stale dated with.
I don't want to be sitting there.
Think might come in.
True. So, in my opinion, just speaking as an individual here, not giving advice as the director of the lab, well, maybe a little bit of both. This is what this endowment exists for, to accept donations on this of this magnitude. This is why the Friends created it. It is a joint operation between the library board and the Friends of the Library. It annually meets to distribute funding. If there is a project that gets identified that needs this level of support, then that's the mechanism that we would use to do it. To me, it makes the most sense to put it in a place where it's going to grow the most value over time and be available for when we do have a need for that, such as a central library renovation project. But I understand, Mike, this is not the first time you've brought up that thought about wanting to make sure that we're doing something specific. And in the past, we have done that. Like I think about a gift of $10,000 that came to Scottsville a few years ago, and Ann Lindbergh, the branch manager, worked with the donor to identify projects that included repainting putting a mural on the columns in the children's room there, and some outside furniture, things like that. So with a gift that we don't have any access to the wishes and hopes and dreams of the person, to me, it makes the most sense to get it into the endowment fund and then the organization identify what the most important needs are. But I'm happy to do this homework to see if we can find out a little bit more about the personal interests of the donor. To me, that's a bit separate from saying, well, what are the needs of the organization? We go through a very hefty budgeting process to determine what our needs are and what amount of funding we need. And we're working our way through spending that now. We're working on next year's.
I guess it might help me to understand. So everything you've just said about there's a vehicle and that's, the cleanest way, what's the purpose of that? I appreciate it. And I guess it would help me to understand a little more about what's coming out of that. I know things are going in, and I'd like to hear more about, hey, we've used 100,000. If 100,000 comes in, every so often, then 100,000 should, like 100,000 should go out.
CE on the spending.
Possibly. I mean, I
think that's a really good idea.
what I'm saying is that would inform kind of my thinking right now. Is I think it's coming across, things are going in, but it's not visible to me what's coming out and how.
Yeah,
it's-
and it'll be interesting to also at the same time kind of get a sense of the philosophy of the endowment in terms of, short-term spending versus long-term, investment and growing the fund. And it is interesting because it seems like it's, as you said, it's grown recently to a point where it substantially alters the landscape of governance of the library. And, I mean, you're talking about some big sums and if the board is saying that money's going to be essentially passed through the board's responsibility to this group, it kind of shifts how the board, the board's role of decision-making around gifts. So I think it would just be interesting to talk about the philosophy as well as kind of what's been.
Yeah, I'll briefly speak to that to say that the intention and written into the agreements that create this fund is that it does not supplant operational costs. So it's not meant to stand instead of the fiscal responsibilities of the 5 jurisdictions that make up JMRL. We wouldn't hire somebody out of that funding. It's made for, it's made to supplement what our jurisdictions are already paying for.
But if I'm correct, that in the absence of that fund and that decision-making process, like this board would have been responsible for making a decision about how that money is spent.
Yes.
Is that correct? And so it's just interesting to me that there's this fairly large chunk of money that.
The members of the board are on the committee. It's
Right,
not like the
correct.
board is not related to this at
Yeah,
all.
I get that.
I mean, we
I
choose
understand.
our president and our vice
Yeah.
president, and they are representing us.
I understand that. It's just a different governance landscape.
I think, I think it's all really lovely when someone gives money and they earmark it, but it's, it's kind of a nightmare for a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Because that's, it's really nice that they want new shelves, but that might not be what the real need is or whatever. And so when you have this kind of ability to grow a fund like this, it actually gives you, the ability to plan in the future and to know that if there is a need or if we do see we want to go in a certain
And
direction.
there are guidelines from the CACF that, I guess
There's a certain percentage that has to be
Yeah.
given
a
out.
percentage of the income every year has to be spent to sort of keep in line with the federal guidelines for.
So it's not hoarding.
Right.
And putting it into the fund is growing. So, and it's not the first
not gonna
time
grow
he's
into
given the money. If
And
this was,
The board and the Friends of the Library worked hard a few years ago to ensure that future fundraising for capital projects would come through this foundation because the Friends found that their capacity was stretched for fundraising during the Crozet Library project. Peter McIntosh had every single check that came through there went through his offices and they were not prepared for that. So he was the Friends president at the time. No, I'm sorry, he was the library board president at the time. And he and I worked with the CACF to create a fund for each branch so that we could use it for future fundraising. So in the Grover Nelson Library's case, they raised $500,000 in support of the renovation of the branch in Livingston. Every single penny went into the CACF and distributions come out from it. So that
can be tax deductible.
yes, they can have a tax deductible donation, which they could do to JMRL as well, or to the Friends. But there's a way there to handle donations coming in, not just on an amount scale, but on a volume scale. So, looking at a substantial central library renovation project, Bill Crozet Library folks raised $1.5 million for that project. And to me, that's what I've been talking about with Charlottesville and Albemarle as a floor for what we could raise for a central library renovation, because that's the main branch of the library system. So you're talking about people making $50 gifts, $10 gifts. In Nelson, Alita and Nelson, they raised quarters at one point, right? When they went by for the 4th of July parade, they got, change. And so all that, the endowment fund is a way to funnel that too, because we don't have, a lot of libraries have a separate endowment, a foundation of sorts. We don't have that, but we're able to take advantage of this here. So I look at this money as an opportunity to help kickstart those future projects.
Yeah.
Did I hear what the board is saying?
I asked, I don't
Please.
know if it was mentioned. The previous 30,000, where did that go to?
It went to the
Did it
Art
go
and
into the
James
endowment, or
Fund
was
of the
that-
Library Foundation.
Okay.
And that was last,
Me.
it was before even the board, right?
That's why I was like, I'm,
Like, this doesn't sound familiar.
no.
Same for Peter.
One of the practical things I can think of here is if you actually have a check from them, so the trust or wherever that check came out of, I'm sure that law firm wants to see that process. So that's something we need to keep in mind. We can, they don't want that check in your desk too long. And they want to close up their business. So for practical reasons, if we can just, put it into the endowment, knowing that we as a board have an ability to use that money and use it for specific reasons. Practical reasons might be the best thing to do.
But I'm happy to entertain the motion. I'm gonna make it myself, but have to entertain a motion that the check be deposited into the endowment, pending further discussion and perhaps clarification of any needs, wants, interests of the donor. But I agree with Ann and David. that you
Not going to leave it there.
Not just, to move it, tack to your bulletin board.
Let me just say that if the check had been made to the Friends of the Library, this is where it would have gone. Since it's made to the government agency here, the board either needs to accept it and spend it as part of this operational budget this year, or find a home for it. And your regional agreement says that you can have an endowment in order to accept gifts and put it into it. It was designed to do exactly this.
I have a question, maybe it's a suggestion. Is there anywhere on our website which would give some sort of information to people in their estate or making a donation and
Yeah,
how
there's
to
a-
do that? the
There's
right way?
a giving page that includes a link to some information about the
Okay.
CACF. And you can make online donations to any of the given funds there too.
Right.
People do that. They set up recurring donations too.
But in terms of leaving the estate, if there's any paper, I mean, obviously, Hartman, we didn't even know you. We don't even know if you had a library card, but it's just interesting to think about, like, as someone's planning, if there was something that you could just sort of say, this would be the most simple thing so that.
That's something, I hear you and I'm willing to make the motion, but I feel like this. When people make a will or donate something, they're gonna tell you what they want you to do. So Mr. Hartman, you may be in my age bracket, which would be a lot older than you all, but he left money, and he didn't earmark it. And it's not like David's gonna take it and do something with it. We still have a voice. And I think what Mike said was wonderful, but he didn't say that. And we don't know what may come up. So in a lot of ways, we are doing what he wants, as we think about it, because he didn't say, I wanted to, I don't want to lounge in the back of the library for all, older people or something. He just said he wanted it to come. So I don't have a problem making a motion to say that David deposited, because we know from the governing body that if we want something, we're going to talk to him and he's going to bring that information back. So I move that he deposit the check.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? Opposed? Hey,
Hopefully.
So
I do think I think having an endowment discussion is one of our
Yes, I'd like to see that continuing.
education.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not-
continue.
I'm excited to have a continuing education already planned for next month. Am I to understand that motion to say, deposits this distribution in the Friends of the Library family of funds?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. I'm just making sure I got the.
Yeah, and that would be a good,
For anything at this point.
Yeah.
Unless there's some information that comes up.
we'll put it there, and when we need it, we'll call it up. Yeah. But let it grow.
I do think that's, thank you. I do think it's a great idea for continuing education to have.
Yeah.
It would be great to hear, because it's $3 million. I'm like, we're rich.
And the thing, David, the things you've spent it on in the past.
Yeah, we can absolutely,
Yeah,
we've got good documentation on all that. In the past, I think we've also had the folks from the CACF come to talk about
Yeah.
their investment strategies. To me, that's not exactly what we're talking, that's not what we're talking about. I see Mike shaking your head. We've had them come to say, here's what we do with the money, but you're more interested to know how the library and the Friends of the Library have used that fund.
How it's grown and
Yeah,
where
how
the
it's-
money has come from.
How it's
and what-
being-
And how it's being distributed
Yeah.
and what the process is.
How it's being used for the benefit of the organization.
Yeah, right. I like that.
Do we publicize these gifts?
It depends. It depends on, what the will of the donor was, and that I mentioned the van and Nelson, it's got recognition on it. You mean like a press release type thing? It depends on the will of the donor, basically.
And in Pro Se, they have a wall, right, of donors.
Yes, and as well.
But I think that's something that they.
We still do that. If somebody gives $1,000 for the Crozet Library Fund, they get a leaf on the tree on the wall at the Crozet branch.
Did you say there's a third donor? Oh, we don't.
There will be, once they finish closing out the tax.
It's very done.
Yeah.
Have a discussion again.
Right. We could forget all of this and just do it again.
All right, next up on the agenda is, we have an update on the director's annual goals. Those, recall, we moved the process for evaluating the director to a different timetable here. So, David, will give us an update on those goals that we identified earlier in fiscal year.
Yes, so it was in your annual budget and meeting schedule that in January you would get an update on the prioritized goals that I set last summer, of which there were 3, and none of them will be a surprise to you. All 3 of them are things that we've discussed already today. The first of which is the Shepherd JMRL strategic planning process through the creation of a new plan covering 25 through 29. So as Meredith said, we're looking to hopefully get a draft in front of the board by April and then get feedback from the board that would go back to the 5-year plan committee. The goal is to have an adopted plan by the end of June. In fact, our plan runs out at the end of June this year, so we need to have something in place by that point. So all of these are very much team effort things. None of these are accomplishments or things that I'm working on by myself. This is an entire group of board members and staff and members of the Friends and the public working on that. Work with the City of Charlottesville this is the second one, City of Charlottesville HR Department to begin an overhaul of JMRL's comp plan. So this is a multi-year process, so progress this year could include pursuing intermediary steps to address staff compression and lack of progress on JMRL's pay scale. So that first bit about the intermediary steps are what the Personnel Committee and the Budget Committee has worked on for the budget that our jurisdictional partners are considering right now. It includes either a 5 or a 7% increase for staff, depending on their length of service. And then I'm working with HR still. We're going to have to go out and collect data from our peers throughout the state on their salary structures, basically. And then I will work with HR to develop a step program that I can bring to the board to say, here's a recommendation. If we try to fund this, so we'll then have to figure out how to fund that over time. So likely it wouldn't be something that we would roll out to all 5 jurisdictions to say, here's the cost it will take to get our staff to where they need to be. We will probably have to roll that out over a couple of years. And we've been talking about comp with all 5 jurisdictional partners for the last 2 or 3 years. So none of this is a surprise. We tend to lag them by a year or 2. So many of them are doing this work now or have recently completed it.
So this came up when we talked to the city, and they seemed very aware
Yes.
that JMRL was lagging way behind in the pay scale. And that's a comparison of what we pay versus a statewide analysis. Is that?
Yes. The data they were talking about when we met with them was the data that Charlottesville got when they hired Gallagher Consulting. And I don't have the list of comparative government agencies, but it included cities and counties throughout Virginia.
And this conversation is going on about compression for some time.
The library board did a compression adjustment that finished in fiscal year 20. That was a 3-year project. But that was in order to bring staff up to staff that had fallen behind on our current pay scale. The pay scale itself at this point is so behind that it needs to be rewritten. So it's not just compression, it's also a re-envisioning of the pay scale.
But the discussion has been ongoing.
Yeah, pay and compensation has been something that the library has talked about for a very long time. And then the final one is to work with the Central Library Renovation Working Group to advance this progress. Progress could include updating the CIP submissions to the city and the county, which happened already, and then facilitating discussions between working group members and elected officials and staff. That work has been ongoing. I think when we talked about this, maybe in the summer even, when I was proposing these goals, Mike had mentioned the possibility that working with the Friends, we could redo or relook at the design study from 2015 that they commissioned, which is the basis of what we're asking the city and the county and Albemarle County to do this renovation on. I think that still makes sense unless we are actually going to get this project in as an architecture and engineering project in the next 5 years. At that point, it's a moot point to do another design study. But if it looks like that's not going to happen, then the next steps would probably be we need to redo that design study and come up with the most accurate information. So a lot of work on these things. We shall see about the progress with the Central Library, and in March, we'll know whether or not that's in the next 5-year plan for Albemarle and Charlottesville. For number 2, we will know about the intermediary steps mentioned there when we're done with the board's budgeting process this fiscal year. And for the first one, the board will likely vote on a new strategic plan in June.
Comments? Questions? Good progress made.
Yeah, I think these are great areas of focus. That's kind of what this is about, is just board input into that. Remind me, there was some discussion about tweaking the schedule of when the director evaluation, what month it lands in. Did we make a change there? Or did we just discuss some possibilities?
It's scheduled for May.
That's the same as past years, if
I can't remember, but I think so.
I think we may have pushed it back into the summer last year. And I think we said May because we wanted to make sure that everybody that was on the board
Right.
had a chance to review the goals for when they were on the board.
Well, there's that, and also, I think in the past, we had some new board members.
I think, Mike, you might be thinking of the board self-evaluation.
Oh, yeah.
That one we pushed because it had been in August, and it was like, this year, Brandon, you had been here for 2 months.
Right. Okay, got it. Thank you.
That did get pushed to March. So that'll be coming up.
Which brings us to the budget update for fiscal year 20.
Okay, so JMRL has concluded meeting with all of our 5 jurisdictional partners. Thank all of you who were able to attend some of those meetings. Always very helpful to hear what they're working on, to hear where we fall into their plans. I also, because you all learned in December, we got late breaking news about medical costs. And it was in fact after Brandy and I had already met with Louisa County, but before any of the other 4 meetings. I did ask the last of the groups whether or not they were interested in the library board shifting the schedule of voting for a proposed budget to December. We've done it in around Thanksgiving, basically. The feedback that I got was that they would rather get the best information we have in November and tweak it as needed, which is what we did this year. They would rather have the broad strokes, here's where it's going to be. And then, while they're working on their budgeting, they're pretty flexible about adding information. So based on that feedback, I think the board can stick to the current schedule, although it does mean occasionally having to scramble a little bit. And I will start sharing out with you all the proposed budgets that city and county staff start putting together in February and March. They'll start, their county administrators and the city manager will start recommending budgets to the elected officials. And usually we can get a pretty good picture of where we are and whether or not there are questions that we need to answer in the next few months at that point. So that will start happening next month. And I'll let you know if we're asked to go speak to any staff or elected officials or members of the public about the budget. That's the update.
So no big surprises in these budget meetings.
Not so far, no. But some of them, they're just starting their budget process now. So yeah, nobody has expressed any shock at JMRL's request. I think it was very well. We've been talking about it with them, since early in the fall, and they understood that the main issue driving the increase was a raise in compensation.
And the library director's report follows.
Just a few things for you all. We are expecting the installation of the kiosk in Nelly's Ford in early February. It's not going to be ready for service right away, but we're working with Nelson County. Probably we will have a ceremony of some sort. We'll invite you all for a ribbon cutting that maybe Alita could do the honors for. So that's very exciting. That's an example of a project that was funded by the endowment from the Nelson fundraising. Point out that there is new carpet installed at the Century Room at Gordon Avenue. So we haven't been there in a while, but it was new carpet was last installed many years ago when I was the branch manager there. And I remember somebody dropping something on it the day after it was installed. Hopefully this will last a bit longer. Actually, that lasted a really long time. It just had a big some not so great news. The Centara building next door to Northside has been sold. I'm trying to get in touch with the new owners because we are leasing overflow parking spaces in front for the Northside Library patrons. There are 10 spots there currently that are heavily used. You'll see today as you drive out, people parked in front of them. It appears that it's going to be a commercial venture there, so there's a chance that we might lose public parking on this side of Northside. There is ample parking, and there's parking in the back of the building. It is at times not as much as is needed, and the library, when it moved from Albemarle Square to the current location, lost some parking capacity just because Albemarle Square has infinite parking, basically. So I'm working on that with the new owners. If not, we'll work with Albemarle County. Currently, we are also renting some spaces in front of what was the Daily Progress building, and that is staff only. So all staff park over there to free up spots at the library, but we might have to try to work on something on that. The Friends of the Library Board met last week, and they have set the spring book sale for Saturday, April 6th through Sunday, April 14th. So I'll let you know, remind you as we get a little bit closer to that. There'll be a members night on Friday night, the 5th, the night before. It's 10 to 7 every other day. And last but not least, I'm happy to announce some recent internal promotions to fill some management level jobs that have been vacated by the recent retirements of Ginny Reese, the Greene County branch manager, and Tim Carrier, JMRL's Young Adult Services Coordinator. In Greene, JMRL has hired EJ Dowling as the new Greene County branch manager. You'll meet EJ when the board goes to Greene in a few months. EJ's been with JMRL as a reference librarian since March of 22. Before that, EJ was the assistant head of adult services in the Washington County Free Library in Maryland. At JMRL, EJ has co-hosted the On the Same Page podcast, hosted the Pages and Pals book club, and has served as the reference department's liaison to Greene County. JMRL is thrilled to have such an accomplished and innovative librarian agree to lead the wonderful staff at Greene in serving the people of the county. I'm equally as excited to have her voice on JMRL's management team. And then Heather Pennick is JMRL's new Young Adult Services Coordinator. Heather started with JMRL in 2004 as a children's specialist at Central Library, and in 2013 moved to the reference department as a reference librarian and JMRL's regional volunteer coordinator, where she has made presentations to the library board about volunteers. Heather has also been the lead in coordinating the Same Page Community Read in years past. She was in charge of that committee, and the annual How-To Festival at the Central Library. Prior to joining JMRL, Heather worked in Boulder, Colorado as a children's library assistant and a youth opportunities programming assistant. She has a bachelor's from UVA and an MLS from Texas Women's University. So congratulations to EJ and Heather. And that's all I have to report.
Here we go to other matters. Matters we need to discuss. Library related. Move on to future agenda items. Reminder that the next month's meeting is in Wednesday. Same time. And that starts our road trip.
That's right, we won't be back to the Northside Library until June. It's Louisa, then Green, then Nelson, then Crozet.
And David, will you be coordinating a ride share?
Yes, I'll send some information out about a meeting in a central location. If anyone is interested in riding in the library van out to Louisa, it will be leaving early because there will be a policy committee meeting before the full board meeting.
Also, the future agenda items, continuing education about the endowment.
Right.
Of course, we will discuss the central library renovation. We should have a policy committee report and a budget update. Where would we be without a budget?
It should also be a 5-year plan committee report because we're meeting on Wednesday. A potential reading of a policy, I'm not sure, but the policy committee is working on Safe Child 4.234. There may or may not be a draft ready for the board to review.
Other agenda items we want to talk about? Okay. I hear a motion to adjourn.
That we adjourn.
All those in favor?
Tony, I'm sorry, before you adjourn, it looks like we do have a hand raised from Mr. McCotter, who is Louisa's new liaison.
Yes.
Do you mind recognizing him? Mr. McCotter, if you can unmute, we'd be happy to hear from you.
I hope you can hear me. Just give me a
Yes.
thumbs up if you can. Very good. I want to thank you for the welcome, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for recognizing me. I look forward to welcoming you back to Louisa. And I would like to be given the honor of making the motion to adjourn today.
We'll take that as a yes. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll see you next month.
All set?
Yeah.